welcome everyone to this wonderful initial online seminar on casework support for refugee students and for those seeking asylum in tertiary education. It's really, really good to see so many people here. And this is actually about sharing practice with one another and learning from one another. So I'm certainly looking forward to the session as we move through it. If you could perhaps move on to Welcome to Country. Lovely. Okay. All right. So we acknowledge the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations on whose land we are gathered today. We also pay respects to the traditional owners of the land on which you are all on today. And if you haven't done so already, if you could put the land in that you're meeting on in the chat, that'd be really great. We acknowledge that the land was never ceded and we pay our respect to them, their customs, their culture, to elders past, present and emerging. Your speakers today are going to be, or facilitators I should say, to be frank. My name's Sue Oldham. I work at Swinburne University and my colleagues who are also facilitating today, Jude Little from Monash, Manager of Student Support and Engagement, and Asma Muhammad Rahim, who is Program Coordinator, Student Support and Engagement, Monash University. And with special thanks goes to some of the driving people behind putting this together. Sally Baker, of course, Fabienne Ramos, Jindri De Silva, and Rachel Burke. So thank you so much to all of those people. Rachel, if you could just introduce the RESIG, that'd be great.
Absolutely. It's really great to be here with you. I think I see a lot of familiar faces of RESIG members and perhaps some new faces for whom it might be your first RESIG event. I'm Rachel. I'm one of the 3 co-chairs. As Sue mentioned, 2 of our other co-chairs, one of them is Sally Baker, the founding chair, and Lisa Hartley. Basically, I'm so thrilled to be able to introduce the kind of event today, or to certainly kind of speak from RESIG's point of view. Because as RESIG, we're a collective of volunteers who are all kind of working in this space of advocating for educational equity for people with refugee and asylum seeker backgrounds. And Sue, Asma, and Jude are 3 of the leaders who are pushing forward this kind of space. Their advocacy, their leadership in the field is very renowned. You probably know their names even if you don't know them personally. As a SIG, we try to have 3 kind of prongs to our agenda. The first is kind of encouraging these sort of collaborative networking opportunities. I think that it's really important to not be the only person in the room who understands or is concerned about a lot of these issues. It's important that we have opportunities to share experiences. And that's what Jude, Asma, and Sue are providing us with today, to actually come together, collaborate, and support each other. We also want to be, as a SIG, kind of channel for funneling resources, best practice, sharing information. If you're already in the SIG or you work in casework, you probably already know Jude, Asma, and Sue's names because they're constantly sharing things with members, best practice, new resources, all of the sorts of things that can allow us to build on our strengths rather than all of us kind of doing our own little thing individually in our own context and perhaps, reinventing the wheel a little bit there. And also the third prong that RESIG tries to work toward is, of course, keeping the visibility of educational equity sort of at the forefront of consciousness for government, for policymakers, for institutions, etc. And so this event today, I'm really thrilled that it's taking place, because actually it's really a number of years in the works. A lot of time and effort from Jude, Asma, and Sue have gone into today. And as Sue said, hopefully it's going to be the first of many such kind of focus events looking at casework. I think casework is actually at the heart of what we do in RESIG. So, you know, we're trying to advocate for student educational equity in terms of the student experience. And it's about so much more than just getting people into the room, isn't it? Certainly, that's a really important part of what we do. We need to think about pathways and scholarships and you know, living funds and all of that kind of stuff, cost of living assistance. But we also need to think about the many complex ways in which students need support once they're in the institutional setting or in the educational context. And I think casework, you know, is at the heart of that. You're journeying beside people. You are a lifeline a lot of times for those students. So people like Sue, Jude, Asma, others joining us today doing this work. It's often, I think, from an institutional point of view, what I would say is sometimes viewed as invisible work. Maybe, you know, what it actually takes to provide support in what can, let's be honest, be a very isolating, alienating system. When you're trying to navigate that in a resettlement context, it's a lifeline to have a caseworker there to support you. So it's wonderful. Thank you so much for, I think this is our last official RESIG event for this year, and it's a wonderful one to kind of finish on. So thank you, Jude, Asma, and Sue. I'm going to hand back over to you. But if you're joining us and you're not a member, membership in RESIG is free, and we'd love to kind of have you join us at these kind of events that we'll be running again next year and into the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. We appreciate your kind words.
Okay, so our agenda for today, there are a number of things. Our work with refugee students and students seeking asylum, and that will obviously be the focus. We'll discuss some of the challenges we face. And if I can get the screen back, that'd be really good. Some of the challenges we face and how we overcome them. We'll actually go through a few case studies. We'll open it up for discussion between all of us, and we'll invite you to actually draw on your experience and to share that. Hopefully we'll have a bit of a discussion on how we can improve on what we do and next steps. So any thoughts on perhaps developing a community of practice so that we can have these sharing opportunities a little bit more regularly. So as we move on from that, some of our housekeeping, I should actually let everyone know that we are recording the event, so I hope that's okay. You can keep your camera on or off, that's actually up to you. I think our moderator who's controlling all the IT will have people on mute anyway if they're not speaking, but with the open forums, if you're not actually speaking, can you please put your mic on mute? And if you can set your Zoom name as the name you actually registered with for the session. And if you have any questions as we move through, before we get to the sharing opportunities, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat, and I think Rachel will actually share those and ask those questions. So if we can just move on to the next, beautiful. Okay, I met with somebody who had been a student at Swinburne. This woman did a TAFE program well before COVID, and she came back to see me only last week to talk about further study options. And she was incredibly excited because she's actually on a CHEV, and it is looking like the federal government will very quietly, as from the 1st of January, move people over onto a more permanent visa. Now, like you, I will believe that when I see it. But one of the things that she did send on to me after she and I discussed her study options was this little piece from Facebook. And I actually thought everybody might actually like to actually see that. So please keep your ear to the ground. We have been hoping for this day for a long, long time. And fingers crossed 2023 will be a year which is much more humane and welcoming than what past years have been in terms of our federal government. So I just thought I'd pop that up so that everybody can see it. Okay, if you can just, over to you, Jude.
Thanks, Sue. So we're going to talk to you now about the work that we do at Monash and Swinburne with students who are refugees and those seeking asylum. Next slide, please, Rachel. So here's a little bit about us and how we came to be working into this area. Can we just go up one more slide? Sorry. That's the one. Yep. So I started my university life majoring in psychology and criminology and a Bachelor of Arts. And I also did a postgraduate diploma in psychology, but that taught me I didn't want to be a psychologist. I wanted to do much more practical work supporting people, especially young people. And after a stint in youth work, I realized I really wanted to work with people who had already some sort of form of direction or had some sort of plan for the future. Which brought me to Monash. And after 19 years, I've landed in this role, despite having worked in this area for a little while now, and doing what I really love, which is student support and engagement. In 2016, we started providing additional support to students who were receiving the newly formed humanitarian scholarship. And it wasn't much support. We would just give them a call a couple of times a semester. There weren't that many of them, and most of the times they didn't pick up or they didn't call back, but there were a few that we started to build a rapport with and saw through to graduation, which was wonderful. But in 2019, my team at the time, which was actually Orientation Transition, were asked to provide a much more substantial support program to students. And the view of that was really to help students through and retain them, because we were investing a lot of money into the students. The program was growing, we were getting more students, and we wanted to make sure that they made their way through. And so we developed this program. And I'll just pass to Asma, who works with me in supporting students from refugee backgrounds.
Thank you, Jude. And thank you, Rachel, for the kind words and introduction. To give you a bit of history of who I am and then my journey with Monash University. I work passionately in general to inspire our students from refugee and diverse cultural backgrounds to empower them in general. And additionally, I joined the program in 2019 after volunteering with Monash Connects and Jude's teams. And after that, I joined the team to support other students and be the voice of them when it comes to their supports and their program shaping. Recently, I joined Host International just to help and then also resettle my community Afghan members who joined Australia recently after the collapse of economy and then the attack that happened in Afghanistan. So that's a bit of me. And next slide, please. But to introduce our program, I just wanted to mention in here that our team, as a part of Monash Connect, we are one-stop shop for all university question and administrative matters for our students in this cohort. Monash University, we do recognize and respect asylum seekers and refugees' experience, and we are here to support our students through their journey at Monash from day one till their graduation and beyond. With this aim and mission, our program consists of assisting with the applications when they're applying for the scholarships, and then applying for their courses at Monash University, largely with the support of Access Monash teams with their questions and applications on day one. And then also additionally, we have got the two dedicated orientation programs to support our students in depth to understand what are the services that are available in general for the students, that they can utilize them while they are here in Monash. We do have a welcome and welcoming back programs early in the semester to just connect and then make the student as a one when they're arriving at Monash University. We do have tailored called programs to students to make sure that they are on bounds and they're under the support throughout their semesters from week 3, week 6, week 9, to make sure that they are reaching and they have got the net supports that are required here at Monash. We do have our mid-semester and mid-year social events just to wrap up and then make sure that our students nurtures during the break times. And at the end, we do have that kind of celebrations to just appreciate their efforts at the end of the years. We do provide supports for our students beyond the graduations, importantly with the alumni assistance, if they need further a letter of support or any general assistance that we can provide to make sure that they are in the right path and we can support them beyond their points. So that's a wrap up of what we do in general at Monash, despite the case management that we do for our students. So let's hear more about Sue from Swinburne University.
Thanks very much, Asma. And you all do wonderful work at Monash. I just think it's fantastic. Okay. My background, just a little bit about me. I've worked as a career counsellor, student counsellor. If you could go back one slide, please. I've worked as a career counsellor and student counsellor in TAFEs and universities across Melbourne. And I began my career in the western suburbs of Melbourne. So I've always had an affinity to supporting those who perhaps don't have the advantage that many others do have. I also began my career as a youth worker, so that's one thing we have in common, Jude, and my very first qualification was a diploma of youth work. I'm a professional member of the Australian Association of Social Workers, and I'm a member of a couple of different organisations that come under the umbrella of the Career Industry Council of Australia. Specifically, they are the National Association of Graduate Career Advisory Services and the Career Education Association of Victoria. In a nutshell, what I do at Swinburne is that I manage the Welcome Scholarship Program, which began in 2017. And I also support our other students of refugee background who perhaps initially came here on permanent humanitarian visas. And I also support students who are undertaking courses at Swinburne or would like to undertake those courses. So quite a bit of my work is actually supporting those people who are applying for courses or they're trying to make decisions on what is the best thing for them to be doing. I am the primary point of contact between the university, asylum seekers, refugees, their advocates and external organisations. Those external organisations range from the Bridgetine Asylum Seeker Project through to the ASRC, Given the Chance with the Brotherhood of St Lawrence and quite a number of others. I provide support to those who are studying at Swinburne through supporting them to navigate internal university processes and services and advocating on their behalf, and also contributing to the improvement and responsiveness of internal services and processes which our students of asylum seeker and refugee backgrounds actually use or seek to gain access to. So that's just a bit about me in a little bit of a nutshell. Over to you, Jude, I think.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks for that. That's really interesting to hear how you go about the business that you do. So now we're just going to talk about some of the challenges that we face when we're dealing with our students. I just want to mention our team also, we're part of the International Student Engagement team, but we also support domestic students who have a lot of issues and might need supported referrals, so they're more complex cases. So we're part of a broader team there. Unfortunately, we don't have a dedicated team for this group, but we definitely look after them and try and prioritise them. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we've split this up into administrative and global issues and then personal issues that the students face. So firstly, in terms of challenges, a lot of the university gets confused about whether or not the students that are in our group are domestic or international. They fit as internationals from a fees perspective, but it's domestics from a not ESOS perspective or no visa restrictions perspective, although some of them, of course, do have some visa restrictions, not the same as international students. So working out where they fit and how the policies and procedures apply to them can be a bit challenging. Yes, we can definitely give you a copy of the slides. The referral processes can be challenging as well, basically because we've got to explain the situation. My ethos at work is every student has a story, so we try and make that story a little less harsh for them to have to keep repeating over and over again, especially if it can be triggering. Referral process can be challenging because other staff might not see them as the special cases that we do and hold them in the same esteem as we do. So that can be difficult. But it's also making sure that they're comfortable with the referral as well. Yeah, and that leads on to my next point, which is wanting staff to be more understanding of all the challenges that are faced by students. And you know, I'm a big believer in policies and process, and I totally understand that they need to be obeyed, but sometimes I like to be a little bit creative with them, I guess. So they can be a bit of a challenge if other people don't feel the same way as I do. But we do what we can, and you know, sometimes get to where we need to be. Government policies and visa decisions are also a big challenge. It's quite heartbreaking when we get a student coming to us telling us that their visa applications or requests for permanent residency have not been approved. But we mobilise, we go into action, and we try and get them all the support that we can, both from a personal perspective, but in writing letters and telling the government and their lawyers and whoever it is that will listen how wonderful they are, what they've been doing at the university, what they've been doing in the community, how well they're doing, and how they're going to have a very positive life here should they be allowed to do that. And another one is there aren't many postgraduate study opportunities available to students on temporary visas, or they're available to them, but they can't pay for them. So they're very expensive to do your master's, to do even an honours course, or even further than that. And the number of postgraduate scholarships is much lower than undergraduate, and even those are not enough. Our university will certainly favour giving a student that hasn't had a scholarship, which makes good sense because it provides more people with opportunities. Just keeping an eye on things here, yeah, the scholarships just aren't as available. So you know that limits opportunities for them. We have to hope that they will get permanent residency so that they can undertake it with a fee help or some sort of similar loan program. But what helps in this situation is certainly ASMA. ASMA is a huge help when it comes to all the challenges that we face. And this is because ASMA did mention this before, but ASMA was a student at Monash, or is a student at Monash. She's just recently finished her Bachelor of Science degree. And she gets it. She knows the student experience. She understands what students are going to, and students open up to her. As many of you will know, sometimes they feel a little bit more comfortable with fellow students rather than staff and coming for assistance and things like that. So having ASMA on the team helps a lot. The students help. Knowing the students, knowing how wonderful they are, and the great futures that are ahead of them if they're given these opportunities. Yeah, they've all come here for the right reasons, and they're all, you know, they've all got so much that they want to achieve and to give back to the community that's accepted them and taken them in. So they make our job so much easier just by being amazing people. It also helps that what we do aligns very much with our values, our beliefs, and our mission, personally, but also professionally. And all the success stories, you know, we just think back to the students that we watch graduate, or the students that go off into amazing internships that then lead to amazing jobs. And yeah, you know, when you think we've hit a brick wall, but the wall falls down because somebody else believes in them too, you know, all those things keep us going. I think we have another slide on challenges. Yes, which are these? Sorry, if we could just go back. Yeah, I think we might have skipped the first slide. So
sorry, my laptop is incredibly sensitive when it's playing from the Google Doc, so I'm trying to move it back.
Oh, no worries.
And if I'm pinning or unpinning people, it thinks it wants to move along. So is this the one you want, Jude? Or
no, two more up. 2 more up, please. Yeah, so I think we did them one more down. Yeah.
And one
there
more.
should be one more.
This
one?
one?
Yes. So then, yes, from a student or a personal issues perspective, we face a number of challenges as well. So many of the students that come to us are first in family, so they're lacking in the cultural capital that students whose parents or even siblings might have gone to university have. So they're not as familiar with the university, how it works, who to go to, and things like that. And if they don't come to our orientation program, although we really, really get on them to come, then they miss out on some really vital information. And we try and catch up with them and give it to them. But students do have minds of their own and other responsibilities. We totally understand that. Which leads into my next point. They have additional responsibilities. Oh, Asma, I think you were going to talk to this one with me.
Yes, just to add on that, we try to provide a tailored support for our students, and it comes from the points that we're trying to understand their roles and their roles in the family and then also within the community itself. One of the first things that we need to consider when it comes to talking about asylum seekers and refugees in general is to respect and recognize their lived-in experience, and that's what we do at Monash. Additionally, we understand that majority of our students attending with those scholarships into the tertiary educations are first in the families. So they are going through some challenges and then additional transitions to find their places within the community and then also within the university in general. They have got multiple roles at home, such as being prime carer of the multiple members of their family, not only one when it comes to the take caring of their families. They are the ones who provide financially and supports families in general. These are the factors are very important to consider when we are providing supports. Additionally, there are some because of not knowing what future holds, it's very hard for our students to plan ahead, plan their future, and then what is happening on their next chapter. That lack of uncertainty and lack of opportunity in general has its own toll on our students. And when it comes to, and then also considering those factors into the supports was the major challenge that we had in general. However, if we truly understand and believe that we can do more, we did provide further supports within Monash with the support of my team for those individuals. That could be providing extension for their assessments, a letter of documentation when it comes to their visa periods, especially for our students who are meeting with the courts and giving them some extra time to work on their assessment, and additionally give them an extra support within our team. So that is some of the challenges that we faced as a team at Monash when we are trying to support this amazing cohort that has got so much potential, but we're in that limit lines. And next slide, please.
Oh no, there's a couple more things we wanted to talk about on that.
Oh
slide.
yes, sorry Jude, I missed
no,
in.
Okay. No, that's
Were
all right.
you able to add on more about the intersectionality issues that our student faced?
Yeah, intersectionality's become a very important word around Monash, as we're recognising that students present with a number of levels of disadvantage or even personal things about them that means that they may face discrimination or difficulties or equity issues and things like that when it comes to getting support or getting assistance or going through university, getting jobs and things. So we're having a number of students who are coming to us from cultures where perhaps it's not acceptable to be LGBTIQA+. And so they're coming here to Australia where it's a lot more open and a lot more accepting and having issues like trying to work out what happens next. We've got intersectionality around religion, around different abilities, around all matters of things. So they're trying to figure out who they are and where they belong and how that works with their families and things like that. Because of their additional responsibility, attendance at events can be a challenge for us. And if we don't have them events, they don't gain those networks and they don't we don't gain their trust as well. And as I was coming into this, you know, some wise people who gave us this program told us that it's really important to build trust. Without the trust, you know, we're not going to get anywhere because of the situations and the history that these people have faced. So getting their trust is really important. We need them to come to events so that they can get to know us and see that we're a pretty cool team. Course preference is another big issue, whereas a lot of families want their children to do certain courses, but then they're not the ones that are actually doing them, doing all those readings, sitting the exams, doing the assessments, and at some point that catches up with them. Uncertainty about their future, just in relation to their visa. So it's a lot different to other students who are just uncertain about their future in terms of job prospects. These people aren't sure where they're going to end up or live or what's going to happen to them next. And then, of course, visa limitations. On to Sue and your challenges.
Okay. One of the things that occurs within universities, and I think a lot of other businesses, if we want to call them that, is that there is a constant level of staff changing because there are many casual employees within the university sector. And that's not just at the lower levels, it's also within academia and high level positions as well too. So with those student facing types of roles, where there's a lot of change in the staffing, you sort of get used to, and others get used to working with you in supporting those of refugee asylum seeker backgrounds. And then all of a sudden they're gone and somebody else actually is in that role. So, and I came across this very early on in my work, and I also then thought, well, what are some of the ways that I can actually have an impact on those? So I set about identifying some of the administrative sorts of guidelines within the university, and we keep a lot of our admin resources and our procedures on internal wikis. So I set about identifying those that had touch points for students of refugee and asylum seeker background. And with identifying those, I've actually tried to work collaboratively with the people that own those wikis to have their wikis sort of as up to date as possible when it comes to actually working with refugees and asylum seekers. And obviously, you know, one of the major things that we come across and have to work with is around students' visas, and often frontline staff don't know, you know, you recruitment or future student staff, whatever you want to call them, often they don't know how to actually advise a potential student on application procedures and a whole range of other things, because they just don't know anything about the visas. So the other thing that I do is that I do a quick guide to visa types, which is specifically for those people. It's very brief, doesn't cover all the visas, but it's something that they can use as a quick guide. Really, the difference between permanent humanitarian visas and some of the temporary visas that people might have, particularly if it is that they arrived in this country prior to Manus and Nauru being set up, so they could be on TPVs, Chevs or BVEs. So they're focusing around those things. Government policies are really difficult. We all know that. And you know, it is, you know, for those of us who want to work in environments that actually match our values and the things that we hold dear to our hearts, some of the government policies are actually really very difficult to deal with, both professionally and emotionally in some cases. And you know, so we've had it imposed upon us that we have to treat people differently because of their different visas. And you know, one of the things about this wonderful group of people is that they don't want to be treated differently. They want to be treated exactly the same as everybody else, have the same opportunities as everybody else. So yeah, so that sort of is a bit tough at times. Some of the administrative procedures are really sort of difficult to understand even for us, let alone someone who is not familiar with the language, the terminology, the processes. You know, what is the difference between a post-census remission of debt and a post-census amendment to enrolment, and what does each of them actually do? And if they're an international student, which these students are classified as international students, which ones do they use if they run into issues around something happening for them out of their control when it has been post-census. So admin processes, they're the bane of my life, and that's a lot of what I deal with as well too. I think the what helps, and you know, I think I'm echoing much of what Asma and Jude have also said, and it really is the goodwill of others both within the university and outside of it. You know, people who are prepared to bend the rules a bit, or to say, okay, how can we make this happen, instead of saying, oh well, no, it can't happen. So those sorts of people are actually wonderful. And, you know, and I guess I think one of our roles is to actually promote the programs internally, and promote the cohorts that we actually work with. And just as an example, I met with our careers team yesterday because they had a changeover in staff, and talked about my role, and had a bit of a focus on the importance of focusing on work rights as opposed to a person's visa. And just another example of, you know, influencing, I guess. I led the team at VTAC a few weeks ago, which assessed the access scholarships for refugees. And so within that, and the people that I was working with, and the guidelines that I can have an impact on at VTAC, then certainly they're things that I see to be important as well. So I'll just leave it there. Okay, over to case studies. And I guess, is mine the first case study group? Yes, it is. Wow, my gosh. Okay. These are just some really basic brief details of some of the challenges or issues that students, that people have come up with. And, you know, certainly, you know, Jude, you mentioned, and Asma, you mentioned the financial impact of COVID and COVID lockdowns. And you also mentioned things around the various roles that people play within their families. And in this particular, with a student supporting their family post-census, where both parents had lost their jobs, her brother had lost his job, so she was the sole earner in the family, so, and was supporting the rest of the family, and also receiving support from the university to some degree financially, but particularly organisations like the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre. Now, with this particular student, there are rules around how many units people are actually permitted to fail before it puts their scholarship at risk. So because these sorts of, these particular events occurred after census date, we worked with her psychological support people, and the particular student was encouraged to put in a post-census amendment to enrolment because they're on a scholarship. Now, post-census amendments to anything are really very serious, and there are very strict criteria around those processes that if it's to be successful, then the evidence needs to be there. And so part of working with that, and it was incredibly worrying and stressful for the student, and also worrying about her family at the same time. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, it was fairly drawn out, but with the support of her psychological support people, medical practitioner, and also with some written support from me as well too, that application was actually successful. So she was able to continue on with her scholarship, and she's actually doing really well now, which is wonderful. Many students also, that's an example of I guess, income issues. And one of the things that we try and do is that with any casual part-time work opportunities on campus, I'm constantly sort of advocating, putting in front of our student HQ people, our students, these students in this cohort do not have any government income support. So they need these jobs, perhaps more than many other people do. So that's one thing that we do. We also, we have really quite a good relationship with career seekers. And we encourage our students to apply for paid internships with career seekers. And so far, there's a bit over 40 of our students have participated in that, with quite a number of them having successful graduate employment outcomes. There are a number of other programs also which are really quite useful for this cohort. Deakin Create is actually one of them. And there is actually another one out of Sydney. If my memory serves me right, Asma, you could probably correct me on this. Is it called Blue Crescent? Or, yeah, anyway, something like that. There's something out of Sydney which is really good. Okay. The student with complex health issues, including mental health issues, is about to complete his degree, but is struggling with the last few units because many of them are group projects, and there are issues for him around that, with the involvement with him being registered with our accessibility people. So they're the people who support those with disabilities. The creation of an education access plan, getting the academic faculty on board, the course coordinator, with the agreement of the course coordinator, and there's one unit coordinator in particular, where with this particular instance, they actually negotiated a project for this student, which was regularly monitored by the unit coordinator. The other player within that, sorry, I forgot to mention, is this man's mental health support worker, social worker. So there's been a number of players, and I think, these types of cases really do indicate that many issues are incredibly complex, and often they can involve some people from within the university, but also people from outside of the university. If a student is gaining support, let's say with Foundation House from outside of the university, I will always encourage them to keep up the support that they're actually getting, because that is the external people are the people who will have the continuity with the healthcare with the particular student. Whereas when the student leaves the university, then they have to, in many instances, actually go out and seek that care again. A couple of things just happening this week. We've had a Ukrainian applicant actually approach us with a partially completed degree. This particular student with her visa is eligible for our welcome scholarships, but our welcome scholarships have closed. There might be some flexibility in that, but I decided to actually take a different tack with it. I actually wrote to the chair of the psychology department and basically explained the circumstances and asked, was there some way that the department would actually be prepared to sponsor and support this student. The department came back to me, which was just wonderful, fairly quickly, and said, yes, we'd love to help. What we'll need from this applicant are these pieces of information. And we're going about getting those pieces of information at the moment. So that's on the boil, simmering. And the last one I'd like to talk about is that Swinburne is actually a dual sector institution, which is just fantastic because the state government has actually supported the funding of TAFE, many TAFE programs for people from this cohort. So there's never then been that question of how is the course going to be funded. So state government's just done wonderful things in that space, but the eligible visas to be eligible for those particular courses are BVE, TPV and CHEV, certainly no other bridging visa. Anyway, Bridget Ann Asylum Seeker Project support worker contacted me and said she had this wonderful man from a country in Africa, and he had been a policeman in his home country, and he's working as a delivery driver here, and he desperately wants to start doing some study in mental health services. Anyway, so initially I thought, well, I'm not sure what we can do, and then I thought, oh, okay, again, I'll be a little bit cheeky and contact the course offering department. The course offering department, because of an already established working relationship, said, look, you know, we'd like to speak to him and see what we might be able to do with him. Again, to cut a very long story short, the course offering department just said they want him. In fact, you know, if there was some way they could actually pay him to actually do the course, you know, I think they would. But so they're prepared to actually fund him in doing the course. The barriers or hurdles that we've come up against is all of the internal systems which are set up to actually make this not happen. So there's been lots and lots of hoops that we've needed to jump through, some of which are not quite completed just yet, but they will be. But what the effect of that on this, this man has been that it's caused him incredible angst, because on the one hand, he's been told, yes, we want you. And then he's getting communication from, you know, an admin area of the university say you've got to pay $10,000 in fees. And, you know, it's, so then, you know, there's a flurry of phone calls and yeah. So anyway, so that one's still sort of bubbling away, but hopefully we get that one settled, and hopefully we get the Ukrainian one all set up to go as well too. So they're my case studies.
Before we move on to the Monash ones, does anybody want to ask any questions of Sue
Yeah.
with regards to her case studies and how she managed those or dealt with those, or have something similar?
It would be great if you've had something similar, just to talk about how you dealt with it.
There was a question in the chat that Melinda posed from Kaplan. There are several PG full scholarships available for refugees every year. However, they often receive few, if any, applications.
Oh.
Any ideas of why that might be and how we could do more to effectively promote them? Yeah, I wasn't aware of what was happening there. I have heard of Kaplan in terms of we partner with them for some courses in Singapore, but I don't know much about their time here at Monash. But we can definitely, if we know about them, we'll definitely promote them. Azman?
I just wanted to add on one of the approaches that we can have when it comes to the scholarships. So it includes including them on our annual scholarships information sessions that are done with the Deakin Create and others. Not only it adds on the emphasis, but then also it helps us with our inquiry informations that are required for individual scholarships. Additional to that, we can add the contact persons for those scholarships, which is very important too. These factors has got a huge impact when it comes to the information sessions. One, we will avoid not knowing informations that are within the community. Second is that if you could directly approach schools, especially the higher schools, and letting them know about this scholarship, which is amazing too. One more thing that we need to consider is at the moment in our community, we have got potential GPs from Afghan community who work almost 10 years, but when it comes to here, their qualification is not assessed as much as they wanted, and there is a huge gap. We can directly support them when it comes to those scholarships. I'm happy to discuss it later, but then these are the base approach that I could give you at this stage.
Thank you. Yeah, Karen's also mentioned that Deakin have some postgraduate scholarships available too. Leslie, you've raised your hand. Did you want to ask a question?
I was just going, oops. Yeah, I was just following on from what Sue was saying, and also I think that Jude, you or Asma mentioned as well, how important it is to have those contacts and, you know, having people that you can appeal to get things done. That's sort of how I've been able to help students at my TAFE as well. And just thinking, and also about the scholarships, can't remember who it was who asked that, but the person from Kaplan, the Refugee Education Special Interest Group, the RESIG, who are putting this on, we've got a database of scholarships, and we, you know, desperately trying to keep that up to date. So make sure that you get onto that. And I'm sure someone here is probably sending you an email as we speak.
Yeah, it's in the
so
chat now.
Good.
It's in the chat.
Yeah,
Thank you, though.
And that's because I know students, I tell students and people here in Canberra, go and look at that list, find something where it's got the course where you want to go to and look at that. And I know students who have got scholarships that way through finding them on the RESIG thing. So, yep, that's all I was going to say.
Thank you, Leslie. Are there any other questions before we move on to some Monash case studies?
I don't think there are any other questions that I can see or anything else in the chat. Oh, no, we do. Melinda has her. Melinda, do you? Oh, no, Melinda's saying thank you. I think that's what that is. Absolutely send us if you have any other opportunities you want us to include on the RESIG website. I think also, Sue, Asma and Jude, just these kind of case studies and also the other input you've given us gives us a really good insight into all of the background work that goes on, the enormous amount of effort and that sort of intersectional approach of how many different people actually need to be involved in order to make a difference. I think I really like these case studies are really helpful in that sense too.
Thanks, Rachel. Sam's just posted a note in the Teams chat. So Sam, did you just want to talk to that for a minute, please?
Yeah, I didn't know whether I should say it publicly or not. So Deakin actually don't cancel the scholarships of students that have poor progression or fail units because we acknowledge that they do go through those challenges of family, and it can come at any time of the given time throughout a trimester. So we've actually built that into our budget, but also you know, I think we try to aim to reduce the stresses of our students. So I was away for a period of time this trimester and missed a couple of students intermissions or wanting to withdraw before census date. So we were able to easily backdate those without medical documentation from the students and whatnot, because we didn't want to re-traumatise or cause more stress to those students. So I guess as a holistic approach, the university is really working well for this cohort in my experience. So, you know, we've got a really, you know, the processes and policies sort of we are able to amend as required, shall I say.
Thanks very much, Sam. And it's perfectly fine to say all that publicly. Good on Deakin.
Yeah, it's really cool. Absolutely. I've just
and obviously the students are distressed and upset when they do fail a unit and whatnot, you know, but we would like to reassure them that we understand that there's things outside of their control and the stresses of ministerial hearings and, you know, jobs and COVID and family, you know, what's happening in Iran and Afghanistan, you know, just re-traumatizes. So we're working closely with those to support them through that. They're good times and bad.
Can I just ask a quick question of you, Sam, about that and the panel as well? Do you think it's the personal stories that have the most impact in helping to shape institutional culture? So I know that Karen and others have done work on these kind of workarounds in the system and the importance of seeing it as a flexible, you know, because Sue, some of the examples you were given, the system is actually acting counter to the transformative potential of what we're wanting to achieve with this stuff. With all of the kind of great work that's happening across these different institutions, is it the human stories, the personal, you know, picking up the phone or talking to somebody face to face about what the realities are for students? Do you think that's the main thing?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, look, I think it can be both ways. In my experience, staff across the university trust me, and that's not to sort of say that they don't trust anybody else, but they trust that when I ask for something, I'm asking for it because I've made an assessment. And, you know, due to the privacy and confidentiality of that student, they respect that I'm asking for something specifically for a particular cohort. And I generally, there sometimes can be a pushback depending on change management. We've had major workplace changes and stuff. Things have changed slightly over the last 3 years for us at Deakin. But, you know, at times, yes, a story does help and is beneficial, but then other times it doesn't, it's not required.
And the other thing too, just on a couple of things. So just before I launch into my comment, we have taken on a Ukrainian student for our scholarships, sanctuary scholarships this year. Everyone be aware in the room that once they enrol, they lose their funding, their living allowance that they're allocated. We have made all attempts to contact Claire O'Neill. This student lived in her electorate. And the response we had from Claire O'Neill's office was tell her to change her visa and then she'll be eligible. So even within the own office that's happening. So please be aware of that. And the other thing too that I think I'll just add on to Sam's point, that at Deakin we do have two very specialised case managers. That's Sam and Marina. They're both in the room today. And we also, and they take on a lower caseload to everybody else because they deal with the more, the students that probably require more support than maybe the domestic students. The other thing that we do to help advocate within the faculties is that we appoint academic mentors if the student wants an academic mentor. So, for example, our legal student we took on last year for law has a wonderful academic mentor who even puts a call out for, you know, secondhand textbooks or textbooks from staff, and it's just a wonderful relationship. And if there's any issues in there that Sam needs support with or the student needs support with, they can either go to Sam, their academic mentor, or us at Deakin Create as a neutral space that they can come in and have a chat with us. So it's great that the students know that they have those, you know, a three-pronged approach to support and know exactly who to go to. Yeah.
Thank you. No, that's great. That's really great to hear. I've been writing this in our notes, which you'll see later on as we move through. This is really helpful. Thank you. I'll just move on to some Monash case studies before we can have some more conversations. We just wanted to let you know about a few students that they really stick with us, I guess. One of ours actually didn't receive a humanitarian scholarship. She's a student from Africa who is a refugee on a temporary visa and has actually paid her own way through two postgraduate nursing courses, one in advanced nursing and one in nursing practice. and she's very, very qualified now. She's incredibly qualified. No issues getting jobs and stuff. And we were absolutely thrilled when she contacted us the other day to say that she's been invited now to apply for a skilled visa. So it's not exactly what we wanted. We preferred to have a permanent humanitarian visa, but this will get her there a little bit quicker. But she came, you know, anytime that she thought she might fail a unit, with the expense that her and her husband were paying for her to do the course, you know, we were just right in there trying to help her negotiate with the academic staff, helping them understand her situation, and ensuring that she could complete the degree without any hiccups. So she was quite an interesting student. We have a student at the moment who started in biomedical science because she thought she wanted to be a doctor, but it turned out that her parents wanted her to be a doctor. She got a taste for the performing arts in a program that was run by the Student Theatre Company for people from migrant backgrounds. And she wanted then to transfer to arts. So we organised that, and that was all okay. But then COVID happened, and you know, everybody started looking at their lives and making changes and thinking about their futures and where they want to be. And she decided that she'd like to transfer to nursing. The issue with that is that she was admitted to the course on a 3-year, which was a 3-year course. So she's now exhausted her scholarship. So we're trying to find out what we can do for her to try either extend the scholarship, have her apply again and put her back in the pool with new students, or look at other external scholarships for her, because to pay international fees for a Bachelor of Nursing Years 2 and 3 is quite expensive. So we're looking at all options for her. You know, the worst that happens is that she would have to take an intermission and work in that time. She's prepared to do that, but we're hoping we can come up with a better solution. We also have a law student who's suffered with a lot of health issues, mainly due to, you know, how she left her home, and also the fact that she's supporting her mother and brothers and sisters, and they're here without the father. They're not sure what happened to him. So there's a lot of trauma that she's experienced, but you know, she's studying law, and that's not one of our easiest degrees, that's for sure. But she's been doing a great job, and we're very proud of her, and we reach out to her a number of times through ASMA's phone calls and things like that each semester to make sure she's okay, because it's hard for her to come and ask for help. She wants to be strong and she wants to be on top of things, but yeah, we're keeping an eye on her as well. We've had a couple of students who've been at risk of deportation. To date, of all of those students, only one of them has actually decided with their family to go back and stop fighting to stay, and that was rough for everybody. Everyone else, we've managed to get letters written and things just to support their chance to stay, and thankfully that's worked out. But you know, you forget about them sometimes. You just think about the ones that went back and wonder how they're doing there, because that's never the outcome that anybody coming here wants to have. So, you know, in those situations, it's really important to debrief with the staff, make sure they're okay, because it can be, you know, a bit intense, you know, when somebody isn't able to finish what they started, and, you know, when all we want to do is get them to where they want to be. And then in terms of success stories, we have a number of students that do biomedical science or science with a view to hopefully becoming a doctor, and they have this dream, and we think, okay, how are they going to go with this dream? Because you know, you get the humanitarian scholarship for your undergrad, but then graduate medicine is very, very expensive. But the students who get in, you know, it's quite harrowing. They've got to go through, they've got to get like a very, very high weighted average mark or GPA, and they need to go through a very intense interview process. And then if they get in, it's then, okay, what happens next? But we have been successful in getting the 2 students who have been accepted into graduate medicine a further scholarship, because graduate medicine is actually considered an undergraduate course at Monash, even though it's a graduate program. and we've been able to get them scholarships, and they're doing really well. It's not easy because our graduate medicine courses are Gippsland, so it generally means they need to leave home, and then you've got accommodation costs and living expenses away from home. But they're on their way to becoming really amazing doctors. And, you know, I think of all the students who've helped in medicine and things over the years, and I figured, well, you know, at one point they're going to come back and find me in a bed somewhere and treat me. But I'd be very happy to be treated by any of these two ladies who are doing an amazing job. So yeah, there's some of our case stories. They're really just a drop in the bucket. We've got some really fascinating students who have, you know, come here, taught themselves English, done particularly well in BCE on 2 years of formal schooling, and gotten into the university. And you know, it's just a joy and a privilege to work with them. All right, yes. We just want to, yep, that's one.
Now it's time to have that open discussions and continue with our questions and approaches, hear about your thoughts, and then also about those success stories if you have got any questions in here. Just to add on about the 2 students that we supported throughout the process with the MDs, is that we need to consider those students had the GP of 4 out of 4. Those highest marks that they could achieve and could have been achieved were done. When we're talking about those potentials, those students, we're talking about high achievers in general, completing their year 12s, and then once we see a gaps of dropping those marks, that's the time we will worry, and that's the time that we act on them to support them. And at the same time, that collaborations works that we do, we can see the value of those ones, because not only support us to help each other, but then at the same time we advocate and support about what it is actually to be lived in experience as a refugee at this current time. I think that's the value of our work that we can add on today, and then also in our day-to-day job. So do you have any questions at this stage?
Or would you like to share your experience?
I have a few questions, if that's okay. So my name's Angie. I'm with the Melbourne AMEP program, so the Adult Migrant English program. As you know, we have a huge variety of, I guess, backgrounds in educational experience and capacity in our cohort. A lot of our cohort, and particularly in the last wave of, you know, migration with the Afghanis, are highly educated and have quite a high level of English when they come into the country, but they are coming into that AMEP. And I think, you know, at the AMEP, we're always looking for, you know, a really meaningful and good settlement outcome for people, and education obviously plays a key role in that. How can we best connect in with you as a community, you know, as the experts in the area? How do we best connect in with you so that we can have those pathways open for our learners? Because we do talk about moving on to higher education, and I think that there's a great scope for sort of building that relationship up. So, I mean, because you talk about those interpersonal relationships that are there with departments and that within your own organisations and the benefits of those. But if we can have those outside of our own organisations with each other, then students will benefit more. I mean, our teachers might identify a student and go, I don't know how to get them into there easier. There's this course. Is there a scholarship? You all have that expertise. So are there information sessions? Would you run information sessions? I don't know. What would be the best way to support those who are interested, who may not have the courage to sort of approach a university in the first place?
Yeah, sure. And we can help with that. Well, I think the Refugee Education Special Interest Group is a great one to join, firstly, because there's a mailing list and you can ask questions on that. And they put out PhD opportunities. They put out, you know, new literature in the area. So you could ask your questions there. We're also going to talk about maybe with developing a community of practice later on in the next couple of minutes. Maybe we can use that as a way to form networks and discuss things. Asma, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, sure, but Leslie had her hand up.
Oh.
Leslie, would you like to add something? And I'll go after you.
Yeah, thanks, Asma. I was just going to say, I think it's really important if you can try and, like, I know it might come back to you doing it. I can't remember what you said your name was from AMEP. I used to be an AMEP teacher, but have the person in Melbourne AMEP who has the contacts elsewhere. So find the ASMAs, find the Sue in the university to contact. I know I'm in TAFE in Canberra, and I know the right person to ring up in at the local universities to ask a question for a student. Sometimes I'll contact someone else at the university, and I also go and talk to the AMEP provider about students who might want to come to our TAFE. So it's unfortunately it is finding that right person, but definitely what Julie said about joining the RESIG, that it's, you know, and a community practice, but even just our mailing list, you can sometimes find things there. So both of those I think would be good ideas.
Yeah, I agree with that, Leslie. I think, you know, we have liaison officers in the RESIG, so we can sort of try to help with that process of finding best contacts. Yeah, absolutely.
Marina, would you like to say something?
Oh, thank you. Look, my question's for Jude, and apologies, I was sort of a bit distracted. A call came through while you were talking, Jude, about 2 students who went into postgrad medicine. And I feel like sorry, like I said, I think I was a bit distracted. I feel like you said that you managed to get them scholarships to cover their postgrad studies. Am I correct?
Yes, we managed to get them scholarships that would cover all of their fee payments and also a stipend.
Okay, so my query is, I have a student similar, not graduating this year, but end of next year, doing medical imaging, and, you know, got a great WAM and very passionate, and, you know, might just get there in terms of getting into sort of a postgrad medical course. And he's been exploring, I think there was Karen put up that sheet earlier, been looking at other universities, even potentially moving into state. So he's exploring all his options at the moment. So I was just wondering, that scholarship, so was that a Swinburne scholarship? Was that philanthropic? I was just wondering, yeah, in terms
that
of
that was a Monash humanitarian scholarship.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
The concern with medical imaging is that it's not one of the courses that could get them into a graduate medicine course at Monash. It needs to be biomed or science, and you've got to do specific units and stuff like that. So unfortunately, Monash might not be the best way, but if they're interested and they want to convert to science or biomed, perhaps that's an option. I'm not sure, but there might be other universities that would take somebody with medical imaging.
All right, but it was a Monash scholarship.
Monash humanitarian scholarship. Yeah. Now some of them are funded by people in the community. And some of them are funded by the university, but the student generally doesn't know sometimes they know for promotional purposes, but generally it's just the money's from somewhere. I think my mum's going to turn on the vacuum. Hang on one second.
Just to add on to that, Monash was in a great position because, one, we had the direct entry programs when it comes to from science and biomed students. That's the pathway within Monash University that they continue from a bachelor degree to the MD programs. And that helps us a lot too, because those students were completing Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Biomedical Science with completing the prerequisite, the 5 units that they have to do, alongside with the marks that they're required to complete. And additional to that, they perform extremely well to recognize their efforts and then also their hard workings when it comes to their scholarships. And that was the difference that was the highlight of the MD programs that we had within our cohort. Just to add on our previous questions about AMMP, and then also importantly about Afghan refugees, is that unfortunately we are living in a society that they have divided community based on the times that they arrived in Australia and then the visa categories they are in. So if you're supporting the Afghans who arrived between the year of 2021 and after, they might be eligible to, they will consider as a domestic student. So they will be considered as a CSB place. And then also they're eligible to apply for HECS. Understanding that is extremely important because there is a lots of opportunity for that cohort that we can support them with when it comes to their accessing tertiary education. However, the need is much more when we are considering them, because one, we have to assess their qualification, to understand what they are at, second, supporting them with that process. We have got a couple of organizations that supports those individuals within our community, including Host International. They provide career coaching and at the same time referrals with the education pathway. And at the same time, I think Deakin Career does the same supports too. And then also when it comes to the scholarship, it's very important to know about those visa category, because we want to make sure that they are eligible for those scholarships when they're applying. Karen, would you like to add on something?
Yeah, sure. There was an information session a month or two ago for Victoria, and the other states, I think Western, maybe Queensland and New South Wales also had an information session. They were recorded, and the I'm just about to put into the chat the recording you can take a look at, which gives you a bit of an insight into what the Victorian universities do in terms of scholarships. The other thing that you can do is to access the information sheet that I put there that lists all the scholarships that are available. We've also put links in there, or people's names if they're available on the websites, of who you can go to gain further information or contact about the various scholarships. So that would give you a really good resource to start with, where you don't have to go digging too deeply and contacting 42 universities around Australia. That's all consolidated there for you. So that would be it's available to anybody. So those recordings are on the RESIG website.
Thanks, Karen. That sounds great. Appreciate that. Sue?
Yeah, just in addition to the scholarships, there are and the support that's offered through Host International and through Deakin Create. Sometimes people forget that Career Seekers actually offers a stream of paid internship programs which are targeting those in their mid-career who have experience from their home country and qualifications, generally qualifications from their home country as well. So that mid-career professional paid internship program, it is rolling throughout the year. So it's quite different to the university student stream. So please don't forget about that. It is something that we do often forget about, because generally they're people who are in their mid-career and may not be going to university, or would prefer not to if they had the work opportunity. Career Seekers. So if you just Google that, actually I'll just put it in the chat.
And just another point on Career Seekers, so we work with them fairly closely as well. They don't take all disciplines, so often the health sector is not an area that they specialise in. Certainly law, finance and accounting. So there's only certain disciplines really that they work in.
And engineering.
So
Engineering is a big one.
Yeah, so just be conscious of that as well. And also at Deakin Create, we run career clinics, graduate career clinics. We've just completed our 2022 one for students who are transitioning out from any university. It is free. And we've just done our impact for this year. It's an interim impact report for the last 2 years. And 76% of those who came through our careers clinic have found decent and meaningful employment. And we support all those students from any universities coming through. So, and also if you've got any mid-careerers, particularly those coming in from Afghanistan, we're running careers clinics for highly qualified people, and our success rate with them at the moment is running at 79%. into meaningful employment. And we also advise on access to education. So that's not just at Deakin University, because we don't have the places, but certainly across all other universities, we refer people into other universities as well.
Thanks, Karen. Melinda's raised her hand.
Oh, hi. I just had a question about whether you think that support staff helping refugee students should have special training in counselling, and if so, what would you recommend for that?
It's a good question. I'm just writing the notes. Does someone want to take this one?
Sam or Marina?
Look, I think that, you know, like our team, we're diverse. So we've had a social worker, we've had a counsellor, we've got like Marina's a social worker. My previous colleague was a psychologist. Another one before that was had a degree in counselling and did some courses in case management and whatnot. And I'm a nurse background. So I don't think that there needs to be a specific. I think that, you know, we all do our extra PD and do some short courses and whatnot. It would just depend on what you're planning on doing it in your case management. We don't counsel our students, we connect them to community and appropriate services to have that ongoing connection, because it's important not just during their journey at the university, but once they graduate. Or if they choose not to continue their course because of it's not the right course for them or whatnot. So I think it would just depend on what your scenario is what you have to weigh up for that. In my opinion, I don't know what to.
Just to answer that question, Melinda, it's just that given that we are working in institutions, we are interconnected with different departments and different members when it comes to the supporting students internally and externally. So we will make sure that our students will receive the best supports when we are interacting with them. But then we do complete the specific courses and, as Sam mentioned, specific training to work with the students, especially with those vulnerable members within our community too, to be qualified to support our members and in general with the students too. Having the social backgrounds will help us. However, it gives us another hat to just tackle those issues that we are dealing in our day-to-day job.
Yeah, so we don't have formal qualifications in this area, but we've learned a lot on the job, that's for sure. And yeah, I mean, I had counselling and youth work experience and stuff like that, but yeah, I mean, we do counsel, I guess, for time to time, but when we want to send students for, you know, we'll listen to their stories and counsel through that, but then we would send them on to the counselling service, disability services, the GPs or other services, mental health nurses for more assistance, as Asma has said. A good question, really good question. Thank you.
I think it's a really good question. I think there's an element of institutional duty of care there as well for the people who are doing all of the kind of really heavy lifting. Not to suggest that people are filling the role of psychologists and so forth, but there is all of that kind of accidental counselling that I think takes place. I'm just aware of the time. How do you want us to proceed from here, Jude, Sue, and Asma?
Just moving through the next slide. Well, yeah, we were going to talk about how we can improve on what we do, but I think we've covered a lot of that just given the time. And I've taken a few notes on the next few pages. I guess maybe if we want to move through to our thoughts of developing a community of practice, is this something that you guys would like to get involved in? Are there any platforms that we could do it in that you would prefer to do it in? Interested in people's thoughts on that. And any next steps that we might want to consider moving from here.
Yeah, I think if anyone has anything they want to jump in and say now, but I think also this has shown that there's such an important need for focus on these kinds of issues. Following the event today, we're going to put together a list of all the resources that everyone has shared and discussed and mentioned. Also some perhaps follow-ups as to where you can get in touch if you want to be part of developing this idea. And we'll also have an evaluation form for the event. We'd love your feedback on moving forward as well. But does anyone have anything they want to add in at this point? Just kind of key responses, things that have resonated with you, ideas about moving forward?
Yeah, sorry, can I say one more thing? Sorry, and I've already asked the question. But I deal with students who have sort of long-term health issues, international students, of course. And sometimes it can be really tricky to kind of decide how much space to give them to for example, keep repeating units or allowing them extensions and so on. I imagine that's easier in the refugee space because obviously people are coming from very traumatic backgrounds. But it can be a dilemma in this context because they're not forced migrants. They've chosen to come here. They're usually from affluent backgrounds. And so I guess I'm interested to know whether is there a point where you say, well, degrees have to be worth something. A person in the end needs to do the work. Of course, we're giving them all kinds of allowances because we understand what's going on with them. But yeah, I guess I find it really difficult to know often where to draw the line because I have deep educational values as well. And I think that, degrees need to continue to be worth something, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, Melinda. And I think in the work that I do, a lot of those decisions will be made by the faculties or by the teaching departments as to, especially if it's an accredited course and they don't feel comfortable sending the student out to be a physiotherapist or a pharmacist or whatever it might be. We don't come upon this very often because we've got very driven, very motivated students who really work hard. But when things get out of their control, we'll work with them to find a solution. But we're very much guided by what they want to do. If the faculty's happy to keep them going and everything like that, we're very much guided by what they want to do. If they think that they can pull it together, that's fine. I have a student right now who's got significant mental and physical health issues. He deferred his exams, he rescheduled the deferred exams, he got another chance, and then he said, look, I can't do it anymore, but I'd like to do a summer unit. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Is this practical for you right now? What other things are going on in your life? He's coming off meds, he's got this, he's got that going on. So there's a lot to consider. So we really try and unpack it and make sure whatever decision is made is in the best interest of the student.
Thank you.
And Melinda, just to add on to that, as a student perspective, if they are repeating a unit 3 times, that is a red flag because the student is already exhausted mentally and physically to complete it. And the success rate for the repetition of the units for that period, it's extremely low. Not because the students are not capable of doing well, it's just that they are in that phase of the culture shock, to the transitions that they have been through that may affect their journey in Australia in general. Our international student is extremely important cohort, especially with the recent COVID-19, which they financially have been affected, and then also the lack of workforce that they are within the community and then outside of Australia, that has got its own factor too. There might be a lack of passion and driven that they might need to complete those units.
Okay.
Melinda, sorry, and I'm just going to say, look, academic integrity is the most importance of what we do at universities. And, yes, we might work with very vulnerable and high stress students that have come from very diverse backgrounds and whatnot, but we also need to ensure that we graduate students that are capable and can do so. I'm well known for being the bearer of bad news, to be 100% honest. But we would never come to them without opportunity and knowing that they can go back to another institution and whatnot once they've worked through whatever it might be that they go through. Previously, my team was also part of the specialist student support students, so we also case managed international students, and I still do, as well as other domestic students. So it's across the board that, you know, students do struggle in those ways, and I guess it's about identifying that and trying to catch them early to sort of say, look, maybe instead of being excluded, it's taking some intermission time to plan out and decide what's best for you. And then sometimes it might be just having to support them through that progress of being excluded, you know, for 12 months, and then they can reapply if that's their journey of recovery and whatnot. So don't be hard on yourself. We all have, you know, it's definitely across all boards and all universities and stuff like that. But definitely the integrity of the course is utmost.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, if you'd like to talk to us about developing a community of practice and putting it on some sort of platform that works, maybe, I don't know, I've got a couple on Teams and I never look at it, you know, so okay. So yeah, if you've got some ideas, you can email us. Thank you. You can email us, you can contact us. I think Rachel had to go, so I'll just share my screen quickly so we can just show you the last slides. There we go, 1 second. I've just taken some notes on the things that we've talked about. Yeah, we'd be interested to see if anyone's interested in learning more. People interested in a referral directory, and we'll make that happen. But yeah, just on behalf of Sue and Asma, and I'm sure you'll say your own thanks, and the RESIG, we really appreciate you coming and having these discussions with us today. It's been lovely working with Sue and on this, and of course Asma, who I work with every day, so that's a privilege I have. We look forward to learning more about you guys and helping out with anything that you might need. So please be in touch if we can assist with anything. The slides we made available, I think there'll be an evaluation form. We're open to all feedback and everything. Just maybe my mum doesn't fall down the stairs there. And it's just been lovely to see you all. Sue would like to say something.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone for their input into this session. That has actually been fantastic, and the sharing of practices and little, you know, resources, it's just been really good. So I look forward to that continuing into the future. So thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you so much. Asma, did you want to say a final word? And then I'll thank everyone on behalf of RESIG for all of the time and effort that's gone into this presentation. Asma, Sue and Jude, it's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, everyone, and joining us. And then also just your participations shows your dedications, and then also your value of the lived-in experience as asylums. On behalf of all those refugees, I would like to thank individual of your work and effort, giving those students a chance, and then also supporting through their tough ways. So, but then that is all from me. It was lovely to be here, and thank you for including me too. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.